Okay, this is what you're all waiting for. We're going to put a FiTech EFI system on a generator. We are going to be replacing the propane system that's on this thing for a few reasons. One of the reasons is we don't know how to fix it if something goes wrong. And unfortunately, the past couple of years, that's what's been going on. We've been having nothing but computer problems. One of them being this controller, and the other one being the factory computer, for whatever reason, has failed on the last engine. And then this one here, we have a problem again with this, and these are a lot of money. A lot of money. So, this is an automatic deal that runs the engine. If it has low oil pressure or if the temperature gets too hot or anything like that, it automatically shuts it off. This is really nice to have, but unfortunately it only works half the time. So we're going to be doing away with this and all the propane setup, as you can see here, and we'll be replacing it with the FiTech EFI system just to run gas. Now, to get started, I have to strip all this off, and I'll skip all that because I want to start with the basic 383. This is a 383 small block Chevy, Vortec heads on it. It already has, for the propane setup, a Vortec intake with a 4150 flange, so the EFI deal will just bolt right on it. So, anyways, the FiTech instructions. The first thing it mentions is that it will bolt directly to any 4-barrel intake manifold, except for a spread bore intake manifold, which everybody uses a spread bore intake manifold. However, nobody uses a quadrajet. Why would you use a quadrajet? See if I can turn this thing around here. Okay, trying to get a little closer here. We're using an Edelbrock Performer It is a spread bore manifold, dual plane intake. After the Engine Masters video, where David Freiberger had a hard time getting the Holley system to run on the dual plane manifold, I was a little bit concerned about this one. However, FiTech says do not worry about it, it'll run on any intake manifold. So I'll buy that. I mean, obviously, if we have a problem, we can fix it from there. So, a little bit of a background on this engine. It had first started with a propane setup. Here's the wiring harness for that. These computers right here is what was killing this setup. We had an awful time getting this thing to stay running. When this engine is down, it costs you a lot of money per day. Here's the propane setup. Now, we used a 1,000-gallon tank when we had this thing running out in the field, but we used this little tank to move it around if we had to. Now we are switching to a bigger gas tank. This is out of a 99 Silverado 1500, and the only reason I've used this is because I need that pump and the lines. So, that being said, our first holdup is the intake. Another holdup that we had was the distributor. This engine was actually set up to where you could drop it into a late 90s Chevy truck, and it had the computer controlled distributor on it. I've got it laying around here somewhere. So obviously we're not going to run a computer anymore, so we had to switch to an older HEI distributor. So I've already done that. I've got that out of the way. I've also, because to start it we had to use that computer, I've also rigged up the push button starter on this engine. reusing the relays that it already had. And now you just flip the switch, hit the button, cranks it over. I've got the battery out of it at the moment. So now, first problem, find the stupid adapter plate. I just picked up this Quadrajet. It's a 4150 adapter. Definitely changed throughout the years. Is from a Mr. Gasket, part number 1932. If you've never put one of these on before, this will actually sit on the intake like this. But to get this to work, you'll use these Allen head bolt screws that sit down inside of that hole. But before you put it on the intake, you have to put these bolts upwards through these outside holes. And then to do that without them falling down in your intake, I just go ahead and run the nuts down on them. And then you're able to set it on there. Then just take the nut off. Put this other bolt in its place. Get the gaskets lined up. There we go. Now just take your Allen wrench, go click click. That was a fake torque wrench sound, but if you do actually feel the Allen wrench going click click, you're probably just pulling the threads out. Okay, so now we are back to step one. After we put this adapter plate on that you may or may not need. Now I'm going to start using FiTech's gaskets here. Okay, FiTech says that there are several vacuum ports, and they're all on the back side over here for things like power brakes or maybe, I don't know. I would say the distributor, but I thought I read on here that the distributor needs to be locked out. I'll cover that here shortly. It also says that there are 4 fuel ports, and they've got 2 -6 AN fittings on the back side right here. I guess these are the other 2, and these can also be inlets. These 3 can be inlets. This one here next to the fuel pressure regulator is the return. This one absolutely has to be the return. It's even marked return on the side of it. These 3 can be inlets. Okay, FiTech now is talking about installing a coolant temperature sensor. This engine already has the factory GM coolant temp sensor on the driver's side front half of the cylinder head. I don't know of any GM car that or V8 that didn't have the coolant temp sensor in this spot, unless someone else has moved it. The yellow and black wire here coming out of the front of the throttle body is for the coolant temp sensor. Lucky for me, it works. Look at that. That simple. FiTech does include a brand new coolant temp sensor. It's in a little white box. Part number is 153-26386. Just looks like a factory GM coolant temp sensor. Okay, just to make the video a little interesting, I kind of jumped the gun. I went straight for the throttle body. However, there is a mess of other things that we need to go through. It tells you how to and where to install each component, like the O2 sensor, fuel delivery, things like that. So we'll go through it here a little bit. This wideband O2 sensor, if it'll focus, there we go, is supplied by FiTech. The part number, if you ever need the replacement, is a 0258007285. It already comes with anti-seize on it. This particular engine with the propane setup already had a wideband sensor on it, but I'm ditching it for the FiTech because it had a different type of connector on the end of it. Okay, FiTech says if you're installing in either bank of the exhaust system, to make sure that you have this pointed at least 10 degrees upwards, and that's to keep moisture from collecting inside of it. If you ever notice, your exhaust system actually has a lot of moisture built up in it. So this one happens to point straight down. There's a deal on the bottom, but obviously we're not using that. Screw that on, and then use my trusty O2 sensor wrench. Get it tight, and I will leave this laying here. It'll hopefully have enough wiring to come through this hole. I'm doing an install video. I'll explain how this works a little better on the O2 sensor mounting bung that FiTech provides. Okay, this will mount right here on your pipe. So all you do is you drill the hole where you want it. Then they give you this gasket to go right here. This goes in place of it. Obviously, when you clamp it down, it forms the gasket to the pipe. And they give you these clamps that would probably be better suited for like a 3-inch pipe, which most of you are going to run. And you'll clamp this around the exhaust pipe, holding this down on both sides. Okay, here's the wiring for the wideband O2 sensor. It comes right out of the back of the throttle body. And I will probably put some sort of sleeving on this. Not because I'm worried about the heat so much, but I'm worried about squirrels and chipmunks and whatever else eating the wiring off of it. This thing sits out in the woods, and the animals just love it. They'll chew the radiator hoses. They'll chew off the spark plug wires. So you can see this oil fill cap been chewed on. They destroy the wiring. The wiring for this thing is super simple. Look at this. They've got the connectors in here for the battery and fuel pump. They're labeled here. You can see it. This one says pump. The orange says pump, and then the red says battery. You don't get much simpler than that. Then, if I can hold this camera steady, which I can't. It's already fused. Let's plug it together. So there's that. Obviously, one wire goes to the battery. I have another set of wires here. The blue wire says, man, my camera, I can't believe it won't focus. The blue wire says tack. The black wire says coil. Yellow is fan 1, which I won't be using. White is key. I don't even know why they send directions with this thing. It's so simple. And it plugs in with the same bundle of wiring as the battery stuff. So, let's see if I can be smarter than the connector. Pushes in, done. I went ahead and put these on first and left them bundled up because I will be taking this to the back of the engine and routing the wiring that direction, so I'll get my wiring all laid out the way I want it first. More wiring information on their instructions here. Everything's labeled so nice on this thing. This cable here, and there's enough of it, actually reaches inside the car, and this is what connects to the controller that they give you that you actually read the data on. And that just plugs in here on the back of the throttle body. 2 connections right here. Okay, so reading along, I've just realized that there are several different wiring diagrams in this, and you have to figure out which one you need. We have one here with the conventional distributor with timing control, and the blue and green wire is used, and it goes to a 2-wire distributor. Same here with the external CDI box with timing control. We have, is there anything on the back? No. Here's another CDI box without timing control. Looks like it's going through an MSD box. And this is what I'll be using, the wiring connections for FiTech Go EFI system with HEI distributor without timing control. And then here is a ready to run distributor without timing control. First wire I'll be taking care of is the blue wire that runs to the tack wire of my HEI distributor. The tack wire is this green one that connects to this connector. It is also labeled on the cap. It says tack on it. So what I'll be doing is stripping this green wire back, connecting these, and with a heat shrink butt connector. I'm going to leave the excess length on here because I can always kind of fold it up and I'll tie it into the sleeving so that way later on down the road, say something happens, we decide not to use this engine anymore, I'll still have plenty of wiring here left to put this in another car or some whatever we want to use it on. I'm not going to cut any of the wiring down. Okay, I'm getting ready to attach this red wire that's labeled battery. I don't know really what gauge wire it is. I'm going to try stripping it as a 16. Use your heat gun on a low setting. Now, FiTech says to hook that red wire labeled battery up to a battery source. I could have hooked it straight up to the battery terminal, but you put it on the battery cable right at the starter, and that works just as well. They are looking for a permanent 12-volt source, not a key on. Make sure your battery's unhooked before you do that, or else you'll get some nice marks in your wrenches. Okay, per FiTech's instructions, out of the 6-pin connector, or there's 2 connectors, altogether 6 wires coming from those. The black wire that's labeled coil is not used. The white wire labeled ignition switch, well, that's easy enough. Goes to the 12-volt side with the key on. Okay. The yellow wire goes to the fan. We're not using that. It's labeled fan. And the blue wire I've already got hooked up, goes to the tack terminal on the cap. The orange wire labeled pump is going to the pump. I'm a little bit confused by their instructions because it says large orange wire is going to the electric fan. And the orange wire on the picture says yellow wire connect to fan relay ground. I'll read into that some more. Okay, back to the timing issue. From what I understand, and FiTech mentions it many times in their instructions, they said the HEI distributor will not work with the timing control system on the little setup. It does not do self-tuning. So FiTech says that the self-tune, or the timing option, is for people that want to manually set up their own timing by themselves. But the way I'm understanding it is you can still run the HEI distributor with the vacuum advance. I don't know about the other, like the other electronic types of HEI distributors. But they are saying this will not work, especially, they said if you locked it out, that it would work, the timing stuff would work on this computer. So I'm not going to lock it out, and the reason being is because I am putting this together for someone else, and I want them to be able to walk into a parts store and pull one of these distributors off the shelf, be able to stab it in and go. I don't want there to be any guesswork about it. I just want it to work. So I did put on a vacuum line, which this line I got from a friend of mine. That this is actually the inside of a fuel line. I heated it up and then pushed it onto the nipple on both the FiTech throttle body and the vacuum canister. I've got some of my wire put together here. I haven't put any wrap or anything on it yet because I'm not 100% sure, if I'm going to run into any problems. So, as of right now, I think it's ready to go if I put fuel lines on it. But here's something I kind of bothered me. As soon as I hook the battery back up, you can hear the FiTech system, something coming on inside of here. And then this gauge deal lit up. So I'm not 100% sure, but I wouldn't think it's supposed to do that until I actually turn the key on, which my key is just this toggle switch. But I have the key on wire routed to this switch, and I wouldn't think it'd come on until then. But let's flip this on. Okay, there's nothing new going on. So I don't know if just hooking the battery up, if it just did its own thing there for about 30 seconds and is just getting ready to fire or what. But let's just go through some of these buttons. I haven't stuck this thing on here, so I'm just kind of holding it. Look at the dashboard. It looks like coolant temp 44 degrees. That's about right because it's pretty cold out here. Fan option. I didn't run a fan because I'm using a big mechanical fan. Throttle position. That'd be a good one to check, wouldn't it? If I can reach it. Ah. Yeah. Looks like that works. Cat's knocking off wrenches. Okay, so we'll keep going. Oh, I like the fuel flow rate deal here. So many pounds an hour. That's interesting. That'd be kind of good information to know. Fuel pump percentage. Oh boy. Hold it up here. Air temp. Well, the air temp sensor may be right, but I think it's a little high. There's a lot of good information on here. I like this. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Large gauges. Let's see what that is. Enter. RPM, map, boost, AFR. Oh, this is just to set up what gauges you want to use. Okay. Back. Go EFI tuning. Go EFI initial setup. Enter. Engine setup. Yeah, we'll do that. How do I do this? Enter. Cylinders 8. This is actually a 383, so edit. Oh, here we go. Just click over to the right, this little button. You think it just pushes straight in, but you actually can arrow it over. So this is a 383. There we go. Cam mild to wild, I'm going to say it's a 1. Rev limit. This thing doesn't even need to run more than 2,000 RPM, so I'm going to set it at 3. You know what, I'll set it at 5, and then once I get it out in the field, I'll actually set it to 3. I want to see, you know, how well this thing revs up. Idle RPM warm, 800, yeah, I like it. Pump. Pulse width modulation. I don't really know what this should be. I'll leave it alone. Tack or 2-wire plus coil. Tack or 2-wire plus coil. 2-wire. What is that? Let's say tack. Oh, okay. So this is going to just a tack wire on the distributor. So I'll leave it at tack. And there is nothing else to check. So I guess I'll send to ECU. And that was it. Just sent to ECU. Okay. So we'll go back. Ignition setup. Enter. Base timing 13.1. I'm running a vacuum advance. I'm going to leave this as it is and look more into this later if I have any problems. So we'll go back. Idle setup. Enter. Idle RPM warm 800. Yep. Idle set mode off. Oh, I wonder if that's oh, this could be handy because I could actually set the RPM, the idle RPM out in the field as a high RPM, 2,000 RPM, and leave it. This would be something else I can play with later. Let's see, back, Fan 1, nope. Reset, learn, no. Okay, so back. Data logging. This would be cool. Basic sensors, fuel learn values, fuel calculation. Yeah, that'll be good stuff to use once I get it fired up. Display setup. Yeah, let's check that out. Here. Leave all that. Back. Fault code. Oh, cool. DTC. Alright, so that's cool. So, I guess that's it. Now it's just time to hook the fuel line up and wire up this fuel pump wire. Oh boy. Wire up the pump wire and let's see if it fires up. Shut this off and let's see how long it takes for this display to shut off. So far, I'm really super happy with the FiTech. It's been really, really easy to put on. And if I was putting this in on a car, it'd have been even easier yet. This generator, it has been kind of an ordeal because I had to basically start over on wiring it. And it's not been simple. I mean, it is, but you still, for no more than what I'm running, I still have quite a bit of wiring here. Now, after I get that wrapped up, it'll look real good. I did end up putting a weather tight relay in here for the coil, or for the whole distributor. So now I'm not just running a big wire through a switch to turn it on. I'm actually running my ignition wire, my key on wire through this relay to turn on the coil. So as soon as the fuel system's set up, oh, look at that, it's off already. Okay, so I'm assuming that it's off and it's not going to drain the battery, but I'm really anxious to see if I let it sit for a week, is it going to drain the battery or not? Okay, so I'm getting this fuel system lined up. I just found what I've got laying around to make this work for this test, just to get the fire. So I found this braided clear hose. I don't even know what pressure it's rated for, but it's braided, so that's got to count for something, right? Stuck an A-in fitting on it. -6 A-in line I had laying around, stuck into a fuel jug on the other side. So all I had to do was hook up the fuel supply onto a factory fuel line from a 99 Silverado. So why did I use this? Because I'm not 100% sure what type of tank we're going to end up with. It's probably going to be something around 100 gallon. And so the entire fuel system will change. So that's why I didn't buy anything. I'm just using what I've got. I knew that the fuel pump was good in this tank. It's got gas in it. And I still wanted to use the fuel filter. And this one looks bad, but FiTech says they want a minimum of a 30 micron filter on the fuel system. Now I believe the filters, the factory GM fuel filters, are something like 5 or 10. So that's why I wanted to use a fuel filter in line before even putting an ounce of fuel in this thing. And oh, the other thing I wanted to show you, if you're hooking into a factory fuel pump like this, the wires you need to look for is, for one, the heavy gray wire. There's two gray wires, but one of them is bigger than the other. So you want the bigger gauge gray wire, and that one will be your power wire. So that'll hook to the orange wire on the FiTech system labeled pump. The other wire you need to look for is this black one, and this go away. then this heavy black wire will be your ground. So I'm just going to ground it probably to this bolt. I'll just clamp it on there, hook up the orange wire, and we should be ready to fire. So excited. Okay, my fuel system is hooked up. I don't know if my timing, I mean, I kind of guessed the timing on this thing, so I'm not real confident in it, but we will see what this thing does. I was kind of waiting for the fuel pump to kick on, but I'm not hearing it. I really thought the fuel pump would be kicking on. There's no fuel coming up. Okay, I've just hooked the pump up to a battery. It's primed the fuel system. The fuel looks good. Got fuel running down into the jug. All right, let's give this a whirl. Oh wow, look at that. Oh, I'm super excited. Issue. At least it runs. Must have another problem also. I turned my switch off and it's still running. Okay, so I found my problem. There is a wire, let's see, I think it's this blue wire here on our alternator. For some reason I thought that had to be switched with the key on 12 volts, and I'm probably wrong on that. I'm not 100% sure how this thing's got to be wired. I know this one has 12 volts, but apparently it goes through the alternator and back out, and it was supplying 12 volts to both sides of my toggle switch for the key on. So as soon as I hooked the battery up, the FiTech started working, and the fuel pump had already did its thing to prime it. So all I did to confirm my theory on that was unhook this alternator wire, which is okay because I don't even have a belt. I don't even know where the belt's at for this thing. So I can't run this thing for very long, but I did make sure that it works. I don't know if you'll be able to hear the fuel pump or not. I do have it wired up to the orange wire now. I just took the battery off of it that I had on there and wired it up like it's supposed to with FiTech's supplied orange wire. And now, fuel pump is on. You can hear it running. It's primed the system. Let's try to rev it up. Here at the moment, not really sure why. It might be the timing. because I guessed at the timing on this thing. I guess I need to shut it off before it gets too warm. Okay, so that's it with the FiTech install, start to finish. I'll do an update video later on, but that's about as good as it gets, I guess, right now. It runs really good. I mean, I can't believe it started right up. Like the first try, very first try, I hit the switch and it fires right up. So I've got a few wiring, or I've got a wiring issue that I need to fix on my part. But as far as FiTech's part of it, it was flawless. One thing I recommend is you'll have to either, get a soldering iron and some solder and solder all your connections together and put heat shrink on them. And that's the way that FiTech recommends to do it. Otherwise, you can crimp everything together like I did, but I try to do a pretty good job crimping it together, so I'm pretty confident that it's going to be just fine. Hey, so I just want to let everybody know I've been running this thing for, gosh, quite a while, letting it sit and idle, and we ran it up to like 1800 RPM for a while, let it run there. Man, I think it sounds great. Once again, I know I've said it a bunch, but I'm really impressed with this FiTech right out of the box. This thing is awesome. So, so while it's sitting here in the shop, once again, I got it rigged up to a gas tank from a Chevy truck, but I'll show you how nice this thing is. So it runs up to like 900 or 1000 RPM to warm up. Idles back down to around 800, 850. I got a lifter that keeps bleeding down, so it's tapping now, but it comes out of it. But I'm really happy. I think since I had the battery unhooked, I think it keeps resetting what it has learned in the computer, but it doesn't take long. It really starts to smooth out and run great. But once you do the initial setup on the controller, that's it. You just run it, and it just continuously gets better and better and better. So even when we ran it up to 2000, 1800 to 2000, the thing is just smooth. And we've noticed it runs way better now than it did on the LP or just propane before. Same engine. All we did was throw the FiTech unit on it and it's running. So I'm really anxious to see how much fuel it will use in an hour. But you have options like on your target air fuel ratio. I can lean it out if I wanted. I probably won't, but it has a lot of options. I'm going to talk to FiTech about setting the temperature. I haven't really messed with the controller a lot, but I wonder if you can set the temperature. Say it starts to overheat. Can I set it to shut off at like 230 or 240 degrees? It will automatically shut off. I also want to talk to him about oil pressure sensors. Can we rig this thing up to shut off if, say, it gets down to 10 pounds of oil pressure? Little things to save the engine. Yeah, right now it's great. I don't believe I have any complaints. I had stabbed a distributor in it, and I timed it a little while ago at, I tried to get it around 8 degrees before top dead center, and the computer just keeps on going. It just doesn't really care. It didn't really care where I had the timing at before. It still ran good. Let me see if I can rev it up a little bit. So I got to set up a hand throttle control on this thing, but for right now, smooth. But there you have it, everybody. That's about as good as it gets. I mean, I don't know how we could make it better than what it is right now. I don't know. When I talk to the FiTech guys tomorrow in person, I'll ask them a few questions, and I'll probably go ahead and put it in this video. But the install part of it is so simple. If you already had this together, you know, the engine in the car, wiring was easier. I had to rewire this whole thing, but in a car, man, you could have this thing going in no time. The fuel pump would be the hardest thing about it. So yeah, there it is. Happy. If anybody has any questions, comments, I will do my very best to answer them. I still have some work to do on this thing, like the pipe for the air filter. It's too short now. The breathers, I'm gonna go ahead and put a catch can deal on the breathers, and that's because I don't want the oil to run back through the FiTech system and then back down in the intake. And I don't really know what else there is to do on it. And I got to put like a wire loom, a sleeving on here. Maybe some heat tape or something on that, some kind of keep the heat off of it too. Not that it's real warm in here or anything right now, but when this thing is running full time here during the summer, it'll be sitting in the shade, but it's still gonna be hot. I mean, this thing's main purpose is to supply water to crops. So, man, I wish I could put this in a car, because I really have a lot of faith in it. Right now, anyways, you know, I've read some comments where people have had problems with them, and they've had a hard time getting a hold of FiTech, like their customer service isn't very good. That kind of stuff I don't know about yet. If I have a problem, obviously here this summer when it's running, I'll probably, like it's December 2017 right now, so this next summer I'll do an update video on this to show if we're having any problems or not. And my dad's going to be the one running this thing. So the first thing he says is, you know what this means, the first time I have a problem with something, every time I have a problem with this thing, I'm going to call you. Which he called me every time anyways. But I showed him on the controller that FiTech sends you, it shows you the fault codes. It tells you exactly what's wrong with it, whereas the Propane Setup on here, you had to guess. The computer for it was awful. But on this thing, it tells you exactly. It's got a fault code right now because it says the fan relay isn't on. There's no fan on it. I don't have a fan relay wired on it. So I need to find that setting and shut it off, so that way it doesn't throw up that fault code. But that's the only code. So yeah, tie up a few little things and get it out in the field this next year. Yeah, I really don't know what else to add. It's really good. We've had it running here for quite a while in here. It never died, it never stuttered, it just really sounded good the whole time. No matter what the timing was at, didn't matter. It just ran really good. So I don't have enough good things to say about it. Or I can't say enough good things about it, but there again, you know, in 6 months' time or a year's time, you know, that may totally change. I might find out this thing's junk, but right now, my first impression is it is great. So, all right. Once again, if you have any questions, comments, I'll try to get back with you on the questions. Try to find us on Facebook, even if you want to send us a message that way. Say you don't have a YouTube account, you can send us a message on Facebook through the Divine Speed Facebook page. Has the same logo. I'm usually pretty good about getting stuff answered in the same day. If I can get set down, if I can get behind a computer. Feel free to say whatever. Say all the negative things you want. Just make sure if you've got a YouTube account and you're saying negative things, go ahead and subscribe anyways, just because I would appreciate it, and I'm going to tell you to subscribe. All right. Yeah, see y'all later.